What is going on, guys? What is going on, 27 squad? God bless you guys. Welcome back into another video, and today we're talking about the New York Giants free agency radar. These are all guys that I have on my radar in free agency. Not talking little names here. We're gonna go with the bigger names, the more notable names out there. So I got a couple of guys to just throw at you guys and see if you guys want to sign them. Like I said, these aren't all the guys I want to sign. These are my options that I want to sign. So I'm not going to be trying to sign all of these guys, but these are guys that I'm definitely keeping my eyes out in free agency. Now, if you guys haven't already, make sure you guys check out part 1 of this video. That's the video of me going over all the New York Giants free agents, taking care of our own guys and seeing who I would re-sign or let go, and who I would re-sign for how much money. In that video. So guys like Marcus Golden, guys like I don't know, some other free agents off the top of my head, Russell Shepard, Cody Latimer, Michael Thomas, guys like that, Mike Remmers, a lot of guys out there. So that being said, let's get on to the video. So we're gonna start off with the pass rushers. I think that's probably one of our biggest needs still. I know Marcus Golden had 10 sacks. That's great, but I want a consistent pass rush. I still don't feel we've had a consistent pass rush. So we're gonna start off with the pass rushers, and we're gonna start off with probably the biggest name that we're hearing so far, and that's Jadeveon Clowney. Now, Jadeveon Clowney is a guy that's a former #1 overall pick from the Houston Texans, and this is not the first time that he's been linked to the New York Giants, as before he was traded from Houston, a lot of New York Giants fans and the media wanted him to come to New York before, things were talking about with Miami and things like that. Jadeveon Clowney was then scooped up by Seattle, and the rest is history. But as far as Jadeveon Clowney goes, and by the way, guys, I'll have my cap that I will be willing to offer this person, or what I think that they are going, like their projected value. Let's just say that their projected value in free agency, or what I would sign them to, or whatever, what have you. So Jadeveon Clowney, I have at a $19 million cap as far as projected value, just because he's the former #1 overall pick. He's had pretty decent years. He hasn't had a terrible career by any stretch of the imagination, but it's definitely not lived up to a #1 overall pick standards. Listen, he's going to be signed for $19 or $20 million to really pass rush needy teams, and that are really trying to get him for projected value and trying to get him out, out of potential. I don't think he's really worth 19 or 20 million yet. I think he's worth 15, 16, 19, 20 is going to be pushing it for me. So that's where I have him projected at, but he is on my radar. If I can get him cheaper than that, I would. But Jadeveon Clowney is on my list. Just don't think if I would sign him. That being because we're going to move on to our next prospects, and that is Dante Fowler, the Los Angeles Rams outside linebacker. Now, this is a guy that was taken 3rd overall out of Florida a couple of years ago, and I knew he wasn't going to do well with Jacksonville just because it didn't fit his scheme. He's a 3-4 guy trying to fit in a 4-3 scheme, and it just didn't work out for him. Now, he tore his ACL in his rookie year. I remember that. It was heartbreaking. I wanted to see what he would do, but he's been coming back in the league very slowly. He's had his best years with the Los Angeles Rams, and now he's looking to get paid. Now, the good thing is he's coming off his rookie contract. He hasn't had a lot of playing time, let alone a lot of production, but he has been looking extremely, every single year he looks a lot better. So that tells me he has not reached his prime yet. He has not been the best player he can be yet, which means you could probably get him for a cheaper contract than what he's actually worth. Now, right now, you're probably going to get him for about $13 million. And that's just, what he's valued at right now. But if he actually reaches his potential and continues to grow, we might be talking about having to restructure his contract because of how much he's now performing over his contract. So I believe Dante Fowler is a better option than Jadeveon Clowney. Then move on to Yannick Ngame. He's a guy that I would give $15 million to. Now, this is a guy that has a good chance of being signed by the New York Giants if he hits free agency. Now, Jacksonville has been telling everybody that they're going to franchise tag him. I don't know where they're getting the money from. They're going to have to cut a lot of players on that defense, and Yannick Ngame will be one of the few stars on that defense. So I don't know if they want to keep him after cutting a lot of talent already. They might as well just reset. But that being said, if he does not get re-signed by Jacksonville at the cost of a franchise tag, then odds are he might be going to the New York Giants. You guys can check out the video I had up above of him, giving hints that he wants to be a New York Giant. But he's someone I would give about $15 million to. He's another guy like Dante Fowler that hasn't reached their prime yet. Out of all of these pass rushers, Yannick Ngame seems to be the most consistent. You know exactly what you're going to get from Yannick Ngame. He's never had a season where he has less than 8 sacks. This is coming from a 3rd round pick, I believe. Right out the gate, his rookie year, he had 8 sacks. So I believe he can get better than that. I believe he could be a 12, 13 sack guy a year. On top of that, extremely good. Rushing the passer, stopping the run, getting forced fumbles. He does everything well. The only problem is he's more of a 4-3 fit, so I don't know what we're going to do there. Patrick Graham, our defensive coordinator, is a fluid, defensive coordinator. It's 3-4, 4-3. It's a hybrid scheme. So I'm excited to see if we bring in Yannick Ngame for that reason. Vic Beasley, he's a guy that's not being talked about much just because he kind of fell off a cliff. This is a guy that was drafted high coming out of Clemson, one of the fastest pass rushers even now in the NFL. And he hasn't been playing up to his standards in the past couple of years. He used to lead the NFL in sacks a couple years ago, one season. And, he was living up to great standards. Now he kind of fell off a cliff. He's had pretty pedestrian. I believe he had about 8 sacks this year. That's not terrible. It's just not his standard, right? So a lot of people are saying that he shouldn't be signed for a huge contract, and I agree with that. I have his projected value at $8 million. He's another guy that we know what he has done in the past. He can get there again. He has the ability to do those things again. And $8 million would be an absolute bargain if you can get back to that standard. We then move on to cornerbacks. I want to talk about 3 cornerbacks, and that is Byron Jones. The first one being Byron Jones. He's the number 1 corner I have on my list, and I'd probably sign him for about an $11 million contract. I think he's worth that. He may even get more than that, but I'm going to start off at 11, and if his agent wants to negotiate, then I'm all for it. So, Byron Jones has been a pretty good corner, to say the least, coming out of UConn. Is a guy that's very fluid, another fluid guy like Patrick Graham and Joe Judge want. They want fluid guys, especially on that defense. He plays corner, he plays safety, and he has extremely great athletic ability. Has one of the records in the broad jump. The broad jump and the vertical, has one of the longest limbs you've ever seen on a human being. He's just a perfect prototype at cornerback, and he's someone I'll be willing to sign at $11 million. We then move on to cornerback Logan. Ryan has had very good years with New England and Tennessee, has been very consistent. He's a guy I'd give about $9 to $10 million to. I'll just say $9 million to, and we'll see what we can negotiate there. Bradley Roby, I give about $8-9 million as well. He's had probably his best years with Denver, being the number 3 corner, that slot corner behind Chris Harris and Aqib Talib. I believe he played with Houston last year. He was pretty pedestrian. So that being said, Bradley Roby is not going to get the biggest contract, but I see the potential and value there. So Bradley Roby is on my radar as well. We then move on to the only offensive lineman I have on this list, because the offensive lineman free agency class is terrible, and Jack Conklin seems to be the only guy that catches my eye. So Jack Conklin, by the way, is my number 1 free agent I have on my radar. Number 1 above any position, above any player. He's my number 1 option. I've been a huge fan of his ever since Michigan State, him being drafted to the Tennessee Titans. He's another guy that was on the Giants' radar a couple of drafts ago. Jack Conklin's a guy I'd get $14 million to. I'd break the bank for him, man. I really would. He's extremely consistent, one of the best right tackles in the NFL. He's had a very young career up to this point, has already been selected second team All-Pro. So, he's a great prospect to be a New York Giant. We're going to move on now to the wide receivers. I have 3 wide receivers on my list. We'll start off first with Brashad Perryman, the Tampa Bay Bucks wide receiver. Now, this is a guy that's a first-round bust. He was drafted by Baltimore, coming out of UCF, kind of like a Julio Jones type prospect. He was tall, fast, didn't have the great hands, but could run some routes. But he was like a really poor man's Julio Jones. And up to this point, he hasn't had a fantastic career, but he had a good season with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Had probably his best season with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, best season in his career up to this point, and looks to be, getting signed by a new team and probably for some more money. And he's someone I give $4 million to. We then move on to Robby Anderson. Now, he's one of the more highly demanded players out there, but I'm sure teams are going to be calling his agent, calling him up, seeing if they want to join their squad. But The wide receiver position for the Giants isn't exactly a huge need. That's why I don't want to sign a big name free agent at wide receiver. Golden Tate, Darius Slayton, Sterling Shepard, and if we resign Corey Coleman, I think is just fine. But I'm looking for another wide receiver, that potentially a taller wide receiver and a fast wide receiver like Brashad Perryman, like Robby Anderson. We don't really have that on this team. We then move on to Demarcus Robinson. Now, Demarcus Robinson, I made this list 4 days ago, and now we're getting today that Demarcus Robinson is on the New York Giants radar. So that tells you me and the Giants think the same. I should probably be the GM in a couple years. So that being said, Demarcus Robinson I give about $4 million to. And last but not least, we're going to talk about the inside linebackers. Now, the inside linebackers, I have 4 inside linebackers on my radar, and all of them I would not be mad about signing whatsoever if we come out with at least one of these guys. The first one is Kyle Van Noy. Kyle Van Noy came out and said that he wanted to be well, he didn't say he wanted to be a Giant, but he was on the Pat McAfee show talking about, Joe Judge and saying go Giants and winking to the camera. So he wants to be signed by the New York Giants. It seems like he's someone I give $8 million to, and Kyle Van Noy is a fluid linebacker. He plays the 3-4, he plays the 4-3, he plays outside, he plays inside, he plays everything. He rushes the passer, has decent cover skills, so he's a guy you could use all over the field. Versatility is what this new Giants team really wants. So we then move on to Corey Littleton. Now, Corey Littleton is probably another highly demanded prospect, especially at the inside linebacker position this year in free agency. A lot of people are talking about him. He's someone I give about $8-9 million to. He's a 3-4 inside linebacker, and he has good coverage skills, so that's something you really want. Then moving on to Joe Schobert. Joe Schobert, consistently getting 100 tackles a year with the Cleveland Browns. I believe he was undrafted as well. Good story. So he's someone I give about $8 million to. And then last but not least, we have Blake Martinez from Green Bay, inside linebacker. He's someone I give another $8 million to. A lot of these guys are $8 million, $9 million guys, because they're right around the same value. I have them as really good inside linebackers. So that being said, Blake Martinez, I give him some money too. Consistently getting like 150 tackles a year with Green Bay, some ridiculous number. He's a tackle machine. So that being said, guys, that is my radar. That is my free agency radar for the New York Giants. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you guys have someone in mind that you want to sign, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.